Welcome to Aspire to Retire. I'm your host, Cheryl Nelson. I'm here with Ralph and Tim Short, along with Scott Earhart, all from Welcome Home Financial Partners. Good to see you guys, as always.
Thanks for having us.
Highlight of my week when we do this.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And today our show is dedicated to uncovering the hidden pitfalls and challenges in planning your retirement. We will discuss and offer solutions to these common challenges, ensuring your path to retirement is secure and well informed. So, how do you avoid these pitfalls and ensure a stable and fulfilling retirement? We're going to talk all about that, guys. But first, what are some of the most common pitfalls that retirees face financially today?
I think the most common pitfall that we see on a daily basis is what you talked about in the open, is clients coming in that are uninformed on how it's going to work in retirement. I've had people tell me that they don't have to pay taxes anymore.
Ooh.
I've had people tell me that they can leave their money in their 401k or 403b and it's all going to be fine. Just not being informed on the retirement process, and then how to take control of your own retirement and ensure that you can live the lifestyle you want to
Do
lead.
these people also have a money tree in their backyard by chance?
Why do you always come at us about the money tree?
Because when I was a kid, I truly believed money trees existed.
But another thing I would say on Scott's point
Yes.
is a lot of people do not understand what their options are if they have a pension and what they need to do in order to make the right decision for themselves. Because that's one thing a lot of people think, that their employer is supposed to tell them what to do. No, the employer will not tell you what to do. They're just going to give you the options. But it's up to you to determine which is best for you.
Right. I remember getting those letters, not about pensions, but about 401ks. And I didn't know what the letters were about most of the time. I just put them in the shredder and didn't even read them. So that's why I think people like you, professionals, are so important to talk you through all of that and what those letters actually mean. So what about lack of planning? Ooh, I feel like a lot of us don't plan for retirement. How can that lead to complications?
Well, I think that's the biggest misconception of them all, is people, hey, well, I've got some money. See, look at my accounts. I've got a little bit of money,
right.
and that's not planning. That's just growing your wealth, right? So it could really, really hurt your retirement years. So if you're not well prepared, if you take the wrong pension, if you claim Social Security too early, there are so many things that could come into play to where you can't live the retirement dreams that you want. And that's what you got to focus in on, because you're in a different part of your life now.
The other thing I would say is most people need to understand what their numbers are, because if you're starting to take out, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month away from your, your 401k, your IRA, and not understanding that it might end in 10 years, what are you going to do then? I mean, I had a client that came in that had about $2.5 million, and they made plans that they wanted $20,000 a month.
Whoa.
As income.
Whoa.
And I'm sitting there looking at them, I said, do you know when that's going to run out? And they said, well, no, it's never going to run out. I said, think about it. Mathematically.
Do the math.
Yeah, do the math. So those are things that we do actually see when people come in. Those are the type of questions that we help answer, because most of them have never seen a very detailed cash flow analysis, what we call a roadmap, to let them see what their retirement's going to look like, and visualization of it, right?
Absolutely. And what I'd tell any of our viewers is, if you don't have a plan, or don't be scared to create a plan. I meet a lot of people that come in too late because they were too nervous. They just didn't want to deal with it. And that avoidance isn't a solution. So, the earlier you start looking at what you have, whether it's a lot or a little, the earlier and the better you can get it started, get that ball rolling. And we'd love to sit down and chat with you and see if we can help.
Yeah, and a lot of people, to piggyback off of that, is a lot of people, they beat themselves up, right? Well, I should have done this better. I should have done that. 2008 hit and I cashed out and I just put my money in the bank. Everybody, we can always look back through life and we could have made different changes, right? We could have done something a little bit better. None of us here are perfect, right? So you've got to make sure, instead of kicking the can down the road, instead of procrastinating, instead of not taking action, you need to take action. The sooner the better.
But the other thing I would say to most people is understand that our parents, particularly in my generation, because I'm the dinosaur here, had no clue about anything about financial planning, investments, things like that. Because were you taught anything about that in school when you were growing?
No,
Okay.
none of us learned this in school.
So don't beat yourself up, and a lot of people need to understand that the 401ks, IRAs did not come into effect until the 80s. So now all of a sudden, you're thrust into something that most people have never experienced before. So that's why you need to talk to people like us who's fiduciaries and understand what your options are and how to make your retirement better.
Yeah, and as a fiduciary, you're looking out for their benefit as well, which I think is amazing. And I feel like in school, there needs to be a new class that everybody has to take called life planning. You know?
Yeah, there needs to be a lot of changes in
Yes.
school, but that's a different topic.
Yeah.
But it is true that a lot of people, they don't get the guidance because they don't seek it, right?
Sure.
They don't pick up the phone, they don't call anybody. They're so reliant on their coworkers, their friends, their boss, their neighbors even, instead of going out and getting the guidance from the right people.
Right. So going back to retirement here, why do so many people underestimate the amount of money they will need in retirement? Is it because people are living longer?
Well, that's a lot of it. A lot, we are living longer. We all see that. Medical advancement has helped us, reach dinosaur years. You're welcome.
Shots
Ralph.
taken.
He just called him a dinosaur. It's okay if he calls himself one.
Paychecks tomorrow, right?
But a lot of people underestimate how long they're going to live. They also don't plan for things like inflation. They don't plan for things like enjoyment either. So why are we worried about, or why do we underestimate what we're going to need in retirement? Just simply, we're not looking at it holistically. And that's our job, is to help you have a holistic look at what retirement looks like, what you want it to look like, and then what you are able to make it look like.
But one of the things that a lot of people don't fully understand, what happens if your children has to come back and live with you? How's that going to affect your retirement? Because that has happened in my time on this earth, because people in the 80s lost their jobs and then went back home, or having to pay for college tuition for their kids. That's something else that most people don't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're right.
and most people don't even know what their budget currently is, right? So when we go through the roadmap process, we do uncover a lot of expenses that they weren't even planning on, right? So life is going to be different every year, day after day. You've got to make sure that, one, you know your starting budget, right? But that might not be your final budget. A lot of people, I've sat down with people before, and we go through our process, and their expenses, after they pay their expenses, their surplus income's like 30 grand. And you look at them and it's like, does this sound right? No, it doesn't. Well, what am I missing? I don't know. You need to tell us.
All right, good point there. We've got to take a break, but before we do, Tim, tell us about our special offer.
So for the first 10 callers who have saved $250,000 or more for retirement, pick up the phone, give us a call, 833-897-4845. We'd love the opportunity to sit down with you in the office and create your very own retirement income plan just for you. Cheryl, the best part is we do it on a complimentary basis.
Complimentary. All right, we're going to open up those phone lines. So once again, if you would like some personal advice about retirement planning and more, call that number, 833-897-4845, or take your phone and scan the QR code on the bottom of your screen. Coming up next, we will talk about some common mistakes that retirees make. You don't want to miss this.
Imagine the future you've been wanting all along. A world where your retirement income is covered and you don't have to worry. Your financial assets are protected, and you have an experienced team fighting every day to grow your assets. Imagine a company creating tax strategies and legacy plans to make sure your loved ones are protected no matter what happens. At Welcome Home Financial Partners, we're an experienced financial team with the right professional licenses and an unbreakable commitment to making our clients feel like family. Here you'll find determined, friendly faces in a world filled with obstacles and problems. We help plan your retirement income to ensure you won't run out of money in retirement. We build in protection to make sure your assets are covered on all sides. We focus on growing your wealth to combat inflation and rising cost of living. And we design tax strategies to help you avoid paying back what you shouldn't while protecting the people you love. Our team never stops fighting for you. With an unparalleled work ethic, we work hard because we know your future depends on it. We're proud to help you choose the life you want to live in retirement. Welcome to your financial future. We're so glad you're here.
Welcome back to Aspire to Retire. Oh, we're having some good conversation today. So getting back into this, we're talking about mistakes now that retirees can make. Ooh, what are some investment mistakes that they're making? And tell us so our viewers don't make the same.
Well, the biggest mistake that I see, or the most common mistake that I see, is all retirement investments in one basket, one type of investment, one house, one vehicle. And when we do that, something bad happens, downturn happens, it can really go down and be very, very hurtful. So the not being diversified, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at there. Would you agree, fellas?
Yeah, and the other thing I think that we might also add in there is tax diversification too, because not all your investment vehicles should be tax deferred and pre-tax, because then at that point in time when you start taking that, it's going to be taxed to you. So having some tax diversification also helps.
Yeah, and a lot of people, you know, when they set up their 401k 30 years ago, their investments that they currently have are still what they had back then, right? So a lot of people that we talk to, they've invested in solely their 401k, and all the investments have never changed. And then they just want to sit there and say, well, you know what? This company's kept my money, they've made me all this money, I want to leave it where it's at. Well, you know, I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to take all of that risk. If you put all of your money into one particular investment when you were 20 years old, it's going to be a little bit different now that you're 60 years old. So not rebalancing and not diversifying is a big risk.
And they really feel bad for the company? Oh, I don't want to take it out of that company. Really?
Yeah, it's always about the comfortability. And we run into that a lot is, well, I've had this company and they've made me this money. It's like, they haven't made you the money. That was your money and your company might have contributed.
Right.
So don't worry about that company. You've got to look out for your best
You're just a
interest.
number to them probably, right?
But they also made money off of you those 40 years that you were working too. Remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So diversification in retirement, why is this? And we talked about it being so important, but why is it so important and what does it look like? So you have 401k, IRA, what else?
Well, what I would say is, let me ask you this question, Cheryl. If you had $500,000 in the bank and somebody came into your bank and took half of it away from you, how would it make you feel?
Well, I would be
Right.
infuriated probably.
So at that point in time, think about it this way. If you don't have enough diversification, that could happen to you because you're going to rely on that as income coming to you. So what does it look like? You're going to have different classes of assets, different income streams coming to you, so you do not have to depend on one source.
So kind of taking your money, a little bit in my mug, a little bit in your mug, and your mug, and your mug, right?
Yep.
You get a mug, you get a mug.
We
What's
call
Throw
it
some more in here.
buckets.
that? You call it what?
We call it buckets, different buckets of
all
money.
right.
And I mean, just to even simplify it even more, we need to have buckets that are for growth. We need to have buckets that are for safety. We need to have buckets that are for income. All of these different things can line up and give you that retirement you want, let alone talking about tax classifications on top of that to really diversify it so clientele can get their dollars when they want them, how they want them, and pay Uncle Sam as much as they want.
Yeah, and we talk about diversification, and a lot of people too, you know, say they have a 401k from an old employer, they have their current 401k, and then they have an IRA. When you take a look at the statements, a lot of the investments that they have are the same. So just because you have different accounts doesn't mean you have diversification. And it also doesn't mean that you have 20 accounts with any type of investment vehicle possible. So everything's got to make sense.
All right. How can retirees, though, balance the need for growth with the need for income in their investment portfolios?
One simple strategy is protected income or protected growth, right? So we've got to make sure that all the assets that you've worked so hard for, all those dollars that you worked so hard for, now we can protect it. We can still make it grow. Everybody, when they talk about protection, they think about just putting their money in the bank, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to put all your money in the bank because it's not going to do a whole lot for you. So you've got to make sure that you've got protected growth once you're getting into retirement or getting close to retirement, because as the analogy of $500,000 in the bank, somebody took half of it. You don't want that to happen, right? You don't want the market to come around to your $500,000 and take $250,000 away, because at that point you probably aren't going to retire. You're going to continue to work, or you're going to sit at home and not do the things you want to do.
But has that ever happened?
Absolutely.
That's right. In 2008, that actually what happened. So if you were fixing to retire in 2008, maybe to even 2020, and you lost that kind of money, would you want to retire, or could you retire at that point in time?
Man, see, that's so scary when you think about that, though, because what was not affected in 2008? Were annuities affected or no? No.
If
Or
you're,
and it depends on the
yeah,
on the
that's a
kind,
good point.
but-
Depends on the type of annuity.
Okay.
But the type of annuities that would have been purchased through Welcome Home Financial Partners, if you had $1 million in that account on March 1st, 2008, when you went to January 1st of 2009, it was still worth $1 million.
Really? Okay, so that's, yeah, I mean, there's so much to learn here. So when a retiree is looking at their investment portfolio, how often should that be reviewed?
Well, it should be done at least on an annual basis, but reviewed by who, right? So that's the thing that you've got to look out for is if you're just taking a look at your statement and say, hey, guess what? I have this stock, it's doing great. Hey, I have this bond, it's not doing so well. Then what are you supposed to do? So people, when they're building their wealth, sometimes you can do it yourself. But when it gets closer to retirement, you really need to lean on a professional. But we have run into people before that get up there in age and they've still done everything for themselves in retirement, but now that they know that they're not sharp enough anymore, whether it's health decline or they're just getting a disease that won't let their brain function properly. So you've got to make sure you're going to be covered, right? So if you get up there in age and you're in retirement and now all of a sudden things aren't clicking, then what are you going to do?
So here's a question then. Can you have power of attorney for somebody to manage your retirement funds for you at that point if you feel like your brain is not where it should be?
Yeah, so you can have, and this is a good point about estate planning, is you've got power of attorney, you've got financial director, you've got medical directive. There's so many things that come into play with that, and face it, eventually we're going to have some health issues. Most folks will, right? So you've got to make sure that you lay it out for the next person in line, whether that's your spouse or it's your kid. You never know until you put your wishes down on paper and you give them their own little map on what to do for you.
We talked about procrastination a bit earlier in the show, and when we do bring up estate planning, that's one thing I want to hit on. You cannot procrastinate. Those are the conversations you need to be having within your household, within your family today, and you need to be looping in your financial professional on those conversations so that we can help those people that you've appointed to make the decisions for you, make the decisions happen in the way you want them to happen.
Yeah, it's scary. You're right, though, because nobody wants to talk about that. Now, what about withdrawal rates from retirement accounts over time? Why is it important to adjust those?
Well, number one, if you're taking money from a 401k or an IRA, just understand that you're going to be paying taxes on it if it's pre-tax. So if you just take money out of that, you're going to be paying taxes. And if you don't need that kind of money, why are you paying taxes on money that you don't really need? So those are things that we sit down and talk with people about.
Okay, well, it's time for another commercial break, but before we go, let's recap that special offer.
All right, so the first 10 callers who save $250,000 or more for retirement, pick up the phone, give us a call, 833-897-4845. We'd love the opportunity to bring you into the office where we'll create your very own retirement income plan just for you. And Cheryl, best part is we do it on a complimentary basis.
All right, keep those questions coming and take advantage of our professionals. Call right now or use your cell phone and scan that QR code at the bottom of the screen. Coming up next, we will feature some of your burning questions. Stay right there.
It was the longest running bull market in history. Everything was looking up. While inverted yield curves pointed to a recession, the market kept going. And then, if you're planning to retire soon, that could spell bad news for your returns. Our team can help you better withstand the bear market. Now more than ever, you need a financial professional to stand with you. Visit our website to learn more about our services. You can call or email our office to schedule your complimentary consultation today.
Welcome back to Aspire to Retire. It's our favorite part of the show. Time to feature some of your questions. All right, so Bob from Midlothian says, I have always been told not to carry a mortgage in retirement. I'm thinking about taking a large sum from my 401k to pay off the mortgage, but I don't know if I want to deplete my savings this way. Please help. Let's help.
So what I would say is there's no right or wrong answer whether you need to pay your mortgage off, because like I tell people, we were taught by our parents to get rid of that mortgage as quick as you can. But my question has always been to people, number one, is having a mortgage in your retirement years a problem, or not having the cash flow to pay the mortgage payment? the real problem. Like I say, there's no right or wrong answer, but there is a right answer to the rest of this question. Understand, when you take out $150,000 from your 401k to pay that mortgage off, guess what? You're going to have to add that money to your income and pay taxes on it.
What?
So now,
You do?
Yes, you do, because it's
Ooh,
pre-tax.
no.
So that's the thing that you need to understand.
I
Do you agree?
completely agree. I'd tell Bob to drive down the turnpike to our office right there on Midlothian Turnpike and sit down with us, and we can show you exactly what that consequence would be if you were to pull that $150,000 out to pay off your mortgage. If you do owe $150,000 and you're trying to pay off that mortgage, the amount you need to pull out is probably more like 180, 185, and I'm being kind.
Yeah, it was
there.
like closer to 200, yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah.
And the issue is, like Ralph's talking about, is if you can afford to pay your mortgage, yes, you pay a little bit of interest, but think about the real cost when it comes to taxation.
Wow.
If your 401k is all fully taxable, and most people it is.
Oh.
So if you're going to pull out $150,000, it's going to be a whole lot more than $150,000 to do that. And now, if you only had $200,000 in your 401k, now you've spent that asset, and now you've got a free and clear home.
Wow, I didn't know
And
that.
no liquidity.
Oh boy. All right, we got some good questions here. Next up is Denise from South Chesterfield. And Denise says, I have heard you in previous shows talk about the importance of estate planning. I am single, never married, have no kids, so what benefit would I get out of estate planning?
Well, what I'd tell Denise is the benefit you'd get is your assets, whatever your estate is worth, gets to go where you want it and how you want it. Now, I understand we don't have kids and we're not married, but do you want the state to end up deciding how those assets are going to be distributed, or would you like to leave it to your church, a charity that you support, a niece, a nephew, something like that? Estate planning can help you achieve that.
Yeah, and estate planning is not always about your death, right? We talked about it a little while ago. Is, you know, you can have power of attorney while you're living for medical, health, whatever. You lay it out there to where it's always a hard decision if somebody's on life support for somebody to pull the plug. I'm being a little bit morbid here, but this is the truth, is that you put all that out on paper. It's a map for that person that you want to left in charge if you can't make your own decision. So not only is it very good for passing away, but it's always very good while you're alive, because we don't know what tomorrow brings.
Wow, okay, good answers there. Deborah in Chester says, I am concerned about Social Security because I think that I will rely on this as an income stream as part of my retirement. Any tips on when or what to claim, and the benefits, are they changing?
Well, I would say this to her. Number one, benefits probably will change over your retirement years. We just don't know what it's going to be. So a lot of people are thinking about Social Security is going to go away. I don't think it's going to go away. It's just going to be different than the way it is right now, and we just don't know what it is. But the other thing I would say to her is just basically it should be part of your income stream. When to take it depends on your situation, and we don't know what that situation is just from that caller. Right. But she would need to come in and see us and say, all right, this is what I'm trying to do. How should I do it? So do you claim it early? Well, if you're in ill health, things like that, it might pay for you to claim it early, but more than likely, the longer you wait, the more money you're going to get, and that's probably going to be your biggest asset for income over your lifetime in
Right,
now.
right.
Yeah, and a lot of people ask that question. I mean, I don't think that's the first time we've heard that question, when do I claim Social Security? There's a lot involved with that decision. It's not just, oh, well, I'm not working, I'm going to claim at 62, or I want it to grow as much as possible, so I'm going to claim at 70. There's a lot involved with that decision.
Okay. Margaret in Verina says, I currently carry a lot of debt and I'm concerned that I will not be able to retire. Are there strategies that can help me to manage or eliminate my debt?
There are definitely strategies that could help you manage that debt. We see this a lot with people. The first thing I'd say is to scan the QR code or give us a call, set up an appointment, because Margaret, you are the type of person that the roadmap will really help, because we're going to be able to see exactly what that debt is, how we're going to service that debt, when it would be paid off. And the other thing I would say to Margaret is, just because we need to service debt doesn't mean we need to stop saving for retirement. You need to work in both worlds. So definitely give us a call. We'd love to sit down and see what that actually looks like for you.
And people have to be disciplined, right? I mean, we can show them, the best way to do it, But at the end of the day, they have to be disciplined. They've got to stick to the plan. And like
Yeah.
Scott says, it's important to get rid of the debt as much as you possibly can for retirement, but at the same time, you still have to save for retirement.
And there is no such magical number that you need to save for retirement. It's based on what you've done over your lifetime, keeping your debt down, whether or not you've saved enough money, but you don't have a lot of debt. So you're in pretty good shape at that point in time.
Right, and how you want to live, if you want to
Correct.
leave any money, leave a legacy, absolutely. James in Ruther Glen says, how can changes in my lifestyle affect my retirement plans? I'm thinking about traveling more now because I'm concerned about the economy, but worried that my retirement plan will not allow this. Any tips or recommendations for me? I know a lot of people want to travel in retirement.
Yeah, and we've talked about it before, the first 10 years or so of retirement, that's when you're really going to do the traveling. But I've also said before is that you don't want the market to dictate what you do in your retirement years, which is why we always talk about protected growth. If you've got all your money in the market and 2008 happens again, you lose almost half of it, what are we going to do? So you've got to make sure at least that first 10-year period that you've got the money to do the traveling, because I do believe a lot of people want to travel or golf or whatever the case may be. But you've got to make sure that you've got some protection inside your portfolio once you hit retirement.
And when I meet with clients, a lot of clients, probably 8 out of 10, tell me they want to travel in retirement. And I have to stop the conversation right there, because travel's a big word. What kind of travel do you want to? There's a difference between the annual European vacation and Mediterranean cruise, or hey, I want to take the grandkids to Florida 1 week a year.
Yeah.
So.
All right, guys, lots of great questions there. We're about to wrap up, but before we go, Tim, once more, special offer.
Absolutely. So if you want a second opinion, give us a call, 833-897-4845. If you've saved $250,000 or more, we'd love the opportunity to sit you down in the office and we'll create your very own retirement roadmap. And Cheryl, the best part is we do it on a complimentary basis.
All right, where you can scan that QR code at the bottom of your screen as well. Thank you again for joining us today on Aspire to Retire. Next time, we will explain how to lay the groundwork for retirement. If you'd like some advice, once again, call us now, 833-897-4845, and you could be featured on our next episode. On behalf of all of us at Aspire to Retire, I'm your host, Cheryl Nelson. Have a great day.